Namaste students. Plants use water not only to carry nutrients throughout their tissues but also to exchange gases with the air in the process known as transpiration. The loss of water by evaporation from the aerial parts, that is from the leaves and stem of plants, is called transpiration. The roots of plants absorb water from the soil. This water is transported to the aerial parts of the plant, including the leaves. Of the total water absorbed by the roots, only a small amount is consumed during photosynthesis and other activities. The remaining water is lost to the atmosphere by the plant during transpiration. A large tree may lose as much as 1,000 liters of water per day by way of transpiration. This excess water evaporation from the plant or tree is important for its survival, as without it, the metabolic activity of the plant would be adversely affected. Without transpiration, the water would accumulate in the plant tissues, causing hydrostatic pressure to build up in the cells, eventually resulting in its rupture. The moisture thus added to the environment cools the climate, thereby influencing the weather. This moisture eventually falls to the ground as rain, is absorbed by the roots of plants and hence again becomes a part of the water cycle. Now we can study definition of transpiration. Transpiration is the loss of water in the form of water vapor from the leaves and other aerial parts of the plant. The transpiration theme, it is a plant lose the water in the form of water vapor. Here water vapor word is very important. And it lose the water in the form of water vapor from the leaves as well as from the other aerial part, that is through the stem as well as the lenticels. So that process is called as transpiration. Now here one of the experiment is there to demonstrate the transpiration. Take a medium sized well watered potted plant. Cover the plant with a transparent polythene bag and tie its mouth around the base of the stem. Leave the plant in sunlight for an hour or two. Drops of water will soon appear on the inner side of the bag due to the saturation of water vapor given out by the leaves. Here you take a water potted plant and tie the polythene bag to the plant, and you can tie one more polythene bag to the pot also, because to avoid the evaporation of water from the soil, and keep that potted plant in the sunlight for an hour or 2 hours. After a few hours, we can observe in the inner surface of the polythene bag, we can see the water vapor. This water vapor, when it condensed, it gives rise to a water droplets. When the temperature is cool, at that time this water vapor which are present inside the polythene bag, it condensed and convert into a water droplet. See, a similar empty polythene bag with its mouth tied and kept in sunlight will show no drops of water. It acts as a control experiment. Missing of the one of the important factor compared to the original experiment. It acts as a control experiment. Take a empty polythene bag and tie its mouth and keep it under the sunlight. There is no water droplets. So it indicates it acts as a control experiment. Next, the movement of water through a leaf. The cell sap in each cell exerts a turgor pressure outward on the cell wall. This pressure forces some water out of the cell wall into the air space between the cells. Here, the water evaporates and the water vapor diffuses through the air spaces between the mesophyll cells into the substomatal space, from where it finally goes out by diffusion through the stomata. The cells that lose water in this way replace it by drawing more of it from the nearest vein. Most of this water travels along the cell walls, and only a small quantity enters the cell by osmosis. Here, I already said the water, when it comes out in the form of water film through the mesophyll cells, that is the palisade and spongy mesophyll cells, then it enters inside the intercellular space, then it enters inside the substomatal space. Here, the cell sap of these mesophyll cells exerts a pressure on the cell wall, that is called as a Turgot pressure. When it exerts a pressure on the cell wall, because of this pressure, the water will come out from the cell wall. Then it fills the intercellular spaces, and it comes out in the form of water film. When it comes to the intercellular space, it turns into water vapor. And from the intercellular space, this water vapor then filled in the substomatal space. Then through the stoma, it will come out to the atmosphere. Next, kinds of transpiration. Transpiration from the aerial parts of a plant occurs from three different regions. First, stomatal transpiration. Transpiration takes place through stomata. Second, cuticular transpiration. Transpiration takes place through the surface of the leaves and stem. Third one, lenticular transpiration. Here the transpiration takes place through the lenticels. Lenticels are nothing but these are the minute openings on the surface of the old stems. Next, mechanism of stomatal transpiration. In stomatal transpiration, the water vapor escapes through the stomata of the leaf. Water, after absorption by the roots from the soil, rises up through the stem and reaches the tissues of the leaves through veins. A large number of spongy mesophyll cells in the leaves have their surface exposed to the intercellular spaces. These surfaces of the cells give out some of the water as a thin film. The water from this film evaporates and the water vapor formed saturates the air in the intercellular space. The vapor then diffuses into the other connecting intercellular spaces and finally reaches the substomatal space, from where it escapes through the stomata. The entire movement of water vapor from the surface of the cell into the outside atmosphere is a result of diffusion. The molecules of water vapor, like those of any gas, move from the region of their higher concentration to the region of their lower concentration. So here you can observe in the diagram, it is the cross section of the leaf. In the leaf we can see the two different types of the cells. First one is palisade mesophyll cell and spongy mesophyll cells. Here water is supplied to the leaf. When the root absorbs the water through the xylem, it goes to the different parts of the plant, and in the leaf through the veins it reaches to the particular point. Here the palisade mesophyll cell, it has a chloroplast, so it utilizes the water for photosynthesis. And here during the daytime, the water which are present in the leaf, and that is in the palisade and spongy mesophyll cell, it come out in the form of a thin film. This water, when it come out from the cell, it become a water vapor and it fill the intercellular spaces which are present in between the spongy mesophyll cells. From these intercellular spaces, this water vapor then comes to the substomatal space. Substomatal space means where there is a stomata Just above that region, there is no cells. There is only the empty spaces. That region is called substomatal space. That water will come to the substomatal space, and in the daytime, stomata is always open condition, and through this stoma, the water vapor will come out from the leaf. So this is the mechanism of stomatal transpiration. Next, cuticular transpiration. Cuticle is a waxy layer secreted by the epidermis on the two surfaces of the leaf. The thickness of the cuticle varies from plant to plant. Primarily, the cuticle serves to prevent evaporation of water from the leaf. However, some evaporation does occur. The greater the thickness of the cuticle, the lesser is the evaporation or transpiration. So, desert plants tend to have thicker cuticle to cut down transpiration. The cuticle nothing but is a waxy layer. It is present on the surface of the leaf. So, it avoids the transpiration or it reduces the transpiration. It is a waxy layer. Next, lenticular transpiration. Lenticels are special opening that present on the bark of the stem, especially in the old stems. Here, this allows diffusion of gases for respiration as well as for photosynthesis. Lenticels never close. They remain open all the time. But stomata, it will open and close, but lenticels, it always in open condition. Water from the cell surface directly facing the lenticels evaporates and contribute to transpiration. The amount of transpiration from the lenticels is certainly more than the cuticular transpiration, but very much less than the stomatal transpiration. Here plant loses its water in the form of transpiration more through the stomata, less in cuticle as well the lenticels. It loses the water through the stomata is more when compared to remaining two parts. So one more experiment we can observe related to the transpiration. So in the diagram you can see you have to arrange the setup as A, B and C. First in the A you have to take a broad leaf potted plant and cover the polythene bag to the pot because to avoid the evaporation of water, and cover this pot along with the plant with the help of the bell jar. And in setup B, the same as we did in the setup A, but you have to fix the cobalt chloride paper. Inside the bell jar, you have to fix the cobalt chloride paper. You can take the wooden stick, and for that wooden stick you have to paste this cobalt chloride paper. So here cobalt chloride paper, it indicates of moisture. Blue cobalt chloride paper dry color, pink cobalt chloride paper in a moist. Here when the cobalt chloride paper is dry, then it is a blue in color. When it is in wet condition, it is in a pink color. This is the setup B. In the setup C, you have to take a bell jar, take a wooden stick. For that you have to paste the cobalt chloride paper and cover with the help of the bell jar. But there is no potted plant. So these are the three setup. We can label A, B, C. And you can keep it in the sunlight. You can for 1 hour or half an hour. After half an hour, you can observe these three bell jar also. In the A bell jar, would show the water vapor condensing on its inner wall. In the inner wall of the bell jar, we can see the water vapors. In the B, that is second bell jar, we can observe here cobalt chloride paper, it would turn pink color. We pasted the dry cobalt chloride paper, that is blue in color. After half an hour you can observe it turns into pink color. And in the sea there is no changes. We pasted the blue dry cobalt chloride paper, blue in color. At the end of the experiment also it is in the same condition, there is no changes. Here you can see in the A, we can see in the inner surface of the bell jar water vapor, that is through the transpiration the aerial part of the plant releases the water. It is settled inside the inner wall of the bell jar. And in the B, so whatever the transpiration takes place, whatever the water vapor comes out, it is absorbed by the cobalt chloride paper. So when the dry cobalt chloride paper, when it came in contact to the moisture or water, it turns into pink color. That's why the cobalt chloride paper turns into pink color, because it came in contact to the water vapor. In the sea there is no changes because there is no plant. So it acts as a control experiment. The sea acts as a control experiment. Next, differences between the transpiration and evaporation. First one, transpiration is a physiological process. Evaporation is a physical process. And transpiration is the loss of water in the form of water vapor from the aerial parts of the plant. Evaporation is the loss of water from the surface of water bodies in the form of water vapor. Water bodies are nothing but river, lake, oceans, etc. Next, in the transpiration, external factors like temperature, sunlight, wind velocity and water content of the plants control the transpiration process. In evaporation, only the temperature and humidity of the atmosphere control evaporation process. And in transpiration, it is a slow process. Evaporation, it is a fast process. And the transpiration, stomata open in light and thus more transpiration occurs in daytime. In evaporation, no direct effect of light on evaporation. So these are the major differences between the transpiration and evaporation. In today's class, you have learned the definition of transpiration and two experiments, that is cobalt chloride experiments, as well as the kinds of transpiration. Next class, we can study some of the experiments related to the transpiration.